The Bible is clear over and over that God is not just motivated by love, that God is love. First John, John describes in First John that God is love. It's who he is, and everything flows out of his love, including these miracles that we've been talking about in these series. And it's important for us to understand, because I don't think we can fully get an understanding of miracles until we recognize the heart of God for you and I, for his children, for humanity, his heart for us and his love for us. We can't fathom his love for us. We're under the misconception that every storm is because of some consequence of something we did wrong in our lives. Friends, that's not the case. The disciples were in the storm this day because they were obeying Jesus. This reminds us that sometimes storms happen even when we're obeying God. Storms come in life. It's just a product of the brokenness of the world we live in. Can you imagine the tension there? I'm guessing you have. You can. Because it's tension that many of us have felt at different moments of our lives. Different storm, but same place, right? You were there. You're obeying God. You felt like you were obeying God. You felt like you were doing what God wanted you to do. You felt like you have made the changes in your life to walk in obedience to what God has asked you to do. And suddenly, you feel like everything's still falling apart. Like, have you ever been there where you felt like you were trying to walk in the way God wanted you to walk, and the storm still came? And you're like, what is going on, God? I've been trying to follow you. I've been trying to turn my life around. I've been trying to do things right. And still this happens. And you cry out to God, and it seems as though in that moment that heaven's silent. It seems in that moment that Jesus may be asleep somewhere. You pray and nothing changes. You plead and the wind keeps blowing, and it just feels like in the midst of it, when you need him most, Jesus is still asleep. We've been there before, right? In the storms of life. And we're tempted to say what the disciples said, don't you care? Don't you care? Jesus says that he stands up, he looks around, he said, wind, waves, be still. He rebukes the waves and they cease, and it was calm. Jesus here speaks into the chaos, and the chaos obeys his authority over creation itself. But don't miss this. This wasn't Jesus showing off, right? He's not standing up and say, he didn't stand up and look back and say, watch this, boys, and then do it, right? This wasn't about showing off his authority. This was about loving the people that were afraid in that moment. When he woke up, he looked at his disciples who were filled with fear. And out of love for them, he calms the storm. The miracle reveals his authority, but the timing reveals his heart. Here's the tension we hold, that God does not always prevent storms. Storms will come. The winds blow at times. The water still fills the boat, but here's the other piece, that in the midst of the storm, Jesus was there in the boat with them. That Jesus was in the midst of it with them. And when the moment was right, he stood up. Again, this is a reminder that sin has even fractured creation. And this miracle of love, that God, he enters into the chaos of the storm. And he's there with the people he loves. And in the midst of that storm, when God knew it was right, when Jesus knew it was right, he stood up. And friends, when Jesus stands up to the storms of life, the storms have no choice but to bow down. because of Jesus' complete authority. He stops for the invisible. He speaks peace to the ashamed, and he strengthens the fearful. And he's willing to look death straight in the face. Say he doesn't have any power. What I want us to see today in these signs of the kingdom, again, going back to the beginning, is I just want us to see in these miracles that yes, Jesus has absolute authority over everything. We looked at it today, over creation, over spiritual darkness, and over disease and death itself. Jesus has the authority over those things. But it's not some distant, cold authority over those things. No, it is a love that moves towards the hurting. It's a love that moves towards us. We may not rebuke winds and waves, but you can sit with somebody in the middle of their storm and point them to the one that can rebuke the wind and waves. When you move towards the outcast, when you stop for the unseen, when you walk in grief with somebody, when we love like Jesus, then we, friends, become signs of the kingdom, of heaven breaking into earth to reverse the effects of sin. That's what it means to see heaven come to earth. When Jesus prayed on earth as it is in heaven, he was talking about this kind of love that God has for us, that we just reflect to the world.